Hello there friends and welcome. Today we just got a new DLC for Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous called Visitors from Morta, and it's actually a free DLC, which means anyone can have it. And it also adds a lot of fun new stuff, starting with a new side quest, with a new location, but most importantly 2 new archetypes, with unique abilities and even a spell. And yes, they can be picked by the main character. Plus a new female hairstyle, based on one of the DLC NPCs, who by the way do come from the Children of Morta video game. It's also a main game DLC, which is great because you can do it on any mythic path with any main character, and also at pretty much any point in the game between chapter 2 and also chapter 5. A Navia should come at your throne room and tell you about an area infested with goblins, which will unlock the Morbid Ridge area in the world map, that you can reach south of Dresden. So without further ado, let us now cover step by step each of the new additions of the Visitors from Morta DLC. And of course I wanna start with the new archetypes. We have 2 of them. The first is a Witch archetype, Keen-Eyed Adventurer. This is meant to support a more blaster caster playstyle for Witch, kinda like Elemental Witch. Your main ability is gained right at the first level, Improved Cantrips. And it's quite unique in what it does, as it will increase the power of your main damage dealing cantrips, so all the ones that require a ranged touch attack to hit, such as Ray of Frost, Acid Splash, Jolt, and also the new Ignition, that I don't think any other character in the game gets. And well, now these will scale based on your witch levels for higher damage. You'll start with 1d3 and then get an extra 1d3 dice for every 2 witch levels, which of course means later in the game you can have even higher than 10 damage dice for your cantrips. Something very fun because, well, cantrips, unlike the other spells, are all infinite casts, so you can always spam them at will. The Keen-Eyed Adventurer's Witch second unique ability is Elemental Vortex. Once per combat, also very fun. I'm all about per encounter abilities, because you then don't have to spam rest, you always have them on demand. Well, you can summon a Vortex for a number of rounds equal to 1, for every 6 witch levels for a maximum of +3 rounds. You can then attempt a combat maneuver based on your witch level and intelligence modifier, so pretty easy to make. And if it succeeds, all the enemies will be pulled inside, and dealt 1d8 slashing damage per 2 witch levels, with a save for half. It's a cool looking ability, but it's not particularly useful, I'm afraid, despite the fact you always have it once per battle, because the damage itself is very poor, unfortunately, for a game like Wrath of the Righteous, where enemies have very high hit points. 1d8 per 2 witch levels is not gonna cut it, I'm afraid. Well, the main issue with abilities like this is that, as always, you don't really have ways of increasing the damage further, unlike with spells, because for spells you have metamagic and some equipment boosts. But at the very least, this will not target allies, so doesn't have friendly fire, and can hit as an area of effect. It's just that once again, the damage will never be good enough. And for a witch, I'd much rather cast a crowd control spell like Winter's Grasp, Glitter Dust, Stinking Cloud, and the deadly classic Hellfire Ray later. Thankfully, this is something that your Keen-Eyed Witch also excels at, because by virtue of their Capstone ability Cantrip Mastery, whenever you cast a spell, it doesn't have to be a cantrip, so will work with Hellfire Ray, that requires a ranged touch attack, it will deal extra damage equal to your intelligence modifier. In a game like Wrath, at level 20 when you get this ability, you can easily have higher than +20 damage from this alone. And when combined with Hellfire Ray, because it fires 3 times per cast, you can add +20 damage on every single tick, for lots of extra damage of course. And in the end, the Keen-Eyed Adventurer Witch only loses 3 hexes, which is not really that crippling, considering you can easily still have all of the best ones just fine with this. My favorite part of course is the increased cantrip damage, because it's something no other class in the game gets. And well, with your improved cantrips ability by the end game, because of how many bonuses you have to damage, you can even hit for higher than hundreds worth of damage with just an infinite use cantrip, which is something really fun. Although of course earlier in the game it won't do as much, but it's still better than other casters have. Meanwhile, the second unique archetype is Fighter and Defender of the Hearth, which is a fighter all about combining melee one-handed weapons with shields for the classic sword and board style. Your unique ability, well, the first one is called Shield Block. You get it as early as level 1, and just like the improved Cantrips for Keen-Eyed Adventurer Witch, Shield Block is also quite unique in what it does. So long as your character is equipped with a heavy or tower shield, the damage of the first successful attack against you will be reduced by 20%, something very unique because it's very rare to get percentage-based reductions to damage in Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder. And for every 5 levels you have, you increase the amount of attacks that will benefit from this bonus. I'll be blunt, it's not a particularly useful ability, despite the fact it's very unique in what it does. Because honestly, in a game like Wrath of the Righteous, you don't want to get hit at all. Rather, it is much better to fully avoid damage than reducing it, especially on the highest difficulty mode, Unfair, where you take double damage. At level 5 you also have a second new unique ability, Heaven's Strike. It has a very cool unique animation, just like the special Witch Elemental Vortex we just covered. And well, with it, once per battle, you get to deal damage to all enemies in a 20-foot radius around your character, with your main hand weapon. It doesn't require an attack roll, which means it always hits, but unfortunately, cannot critical hit. It can be decent, it's just that, as a standard action, you have to choose between using all of your attacks or this ability alone in the same round. And while you can add a lot of extra bonuses, because it's not just the base weapon damage to this, so you can hit for 100 and something later in the game, you'll soon be much better off just using your normal attacks to destroy enemies instead, because you'll have loads of them and can get critical hits. Especially if you're going the shield bashing path, which kind of fits the Defender of the Heart build anyways, because you're all about shields. And when dual wielding you have even more attacks, so there's not much of a point into spending an action as a standard action instead of just unleashing the 10 plus attacks you can have later. But at the very least, when using this, you can still hit enemies with attacks of opportunity. Lastly, you have Defender's Gift, your capstone gain at level 20. Whenever you use Shield Block, you'll deal double damage with any weapon for 1 round, something that is very good of course, who doesn't want double damage, especially since it can work with all of your attacks, unlike Heaven's Strike. Now, while Keen-Eyed Adventurer Witch is a worthy archetype I find, because you don't have that many good witch ones, at least to support a more blaster playstyle, I don't think Defender of the Hearth is that useful for Fighter, because well, Fighter has a lot of great stuff. Mutation Warrior of course is amazing, Titan Fighter is very unique in what it does as well, which is dual wielding two-handed weapons, and two-handed Fighter can get extra damage later with two-handed weapons. I suppose at the very least Defender of the Hearth wins out when it comes to shield blocking as opposed to something like Tower Shield Specialist, but I'd much rather Mutation Warrior regardless. Now what about new items? While most of the stuff you loot from the new DLC is kinda trash tier, we do have a very new powerful item called the Cape of Morta, which you'll get at the very end of the new DLC quest. It's very unique in that it has stacking, scaling benefits depending on your character's level. Something very nice because, as I've explained before, you can access this DLC from Chapter 2 to Chapter 5. So no matter if you get it at the early game or late game, it will prove a worthy cloak. Now, the most powerful benefit comes at level 18, which increases the DC of your spells and ability by +1, something you can't really get in any other cloak. I do think there's one for Evocation though, but it's not particularly a good spell school in this game. Besides that, it's also a Cloak of Resistance that will eventually hit the highest amount, +7, for a nice bonus to all of your saving throws. And well, you'll start getting unique benefits from level 6. First with Immunity to Blindness, then Paralysis at level 9, followed by 5 Impenetrable Damage Reduction, which is kinda poor, at level 12. Level 15 means Immunity to Movement Impairing Effects, a Teleport ability as a swift action once per round at level 20, Once again, the best benefit is definitely the bonus to spell DC. Because the other ones, you can get them elsewhere. Especially immunity to paralysis, movement impairing effects, which you know comes from the freedom of movement spell, which is very long lasting. And teleportation is not that amazing or anything, I'm afraid. I wouldn't say it's the new best in slot cloak, because for multiple characters you have better options. For example, for angels, also Demon, AEON, and LICH. Their Mythic cloak variant, the Bound of Possibility, is still better. Charisma-focused characters also have the new Grand Festival cloak from the Dance of Masks DLC, which provides a very rare type of bonus to Charisma, so kinda evens out and ends up the same for spell DC. But well, for the other Mythic paths and characters that really want to increase their DC to the max, it is a very welcome addition, especially for party members who cannot equip your Mythic cloak. Now that we know what the mechanical additions of the Visitors from Morta DLC are, let us talk about the remaining stuff. The DLC is a pretty short side quest, and I do think it's nice. It pretty much is available anywhere in the game outside of Chapter 1. And well, it's pretty simple. You'll have a medium-sized outdoor area with 2 small caves that you can visit. You'll fight mostly some unique goblin enemies, who actually do have rather unique class spreads like dual cursed oracles. I don't think any other enemy in the game is a dual cursed oracle, which is a specific archetype from a DLC. While the goblins have some unique abilities, I kinda just defeated them fast because I did it with, you know, my angel character at the end game. But they are mostly bruisers. As far as the new NPCs, we do have 2 of them who are meant to be characters from the Children of Morta game. But you do get to speak with them and also ask about some lore of Children of Morta. And while I don't think anything in the DLC is voiced, the 2 new characters, John and Lucy, do actually have full portraits, which is nice. Overall, I think it's a pretty fun addition to the game, not just because it's free, but I've always been a sucker for meeting characters from other games, other planes of existence and so on, which fits a high fantasy, high magic setting that is Pathfinder. So who knows, maybe we'll get more crossovers in the future. Most importantly, I highly welcome the addition of new archetypes for free. And honestly, my dream archetype would probably be a full summoner focused one. A playstyle that is sadly my favorite, but also still quite lacking in Wrath of the Righteous, despite of the ones we have. But anyways, this was it for our Visitors from Morta free DLC overview. If you found this guide useful, as always, please remember to like, subscribe, and also consider becoming a channel member if you can. I really appreciate your support. The next video will most likely be about the new patch and later updated companion builds. Thank you for watching and see you next time, friends.